It looks like we have some updates in the AEW media rights deal story, with the NBA now seemingly not staying with Warner Brothers Discovery, at least at this point in time. What does this mean for All Elite Wrestling? What did Tony Khan have to say earlier this week on the media call that has people thinking that we could see some sort of all-encompassing streaming deal? And what the hell is next in this battle, as well as what is some not so great information that's been going around on the internet about this particular situation. All that and much more coming up in this video, so be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I'm Omer Q for Real Take Wrestling. Let's dive right in and talk about the big news. The NBA was embroiled in negotiations with Warner Brothers Discovery as well as Disney to renew their current media rights deal. The deal was up. This is one of the biggest media rights battles, or negotiations, I should say, there is for any company out there. And of course, Warner and ESPN traditionally have split the primetime offerings for the NBA. And the expectation was for AEW that they were going to wait around until there was a bit of a final decision made on what Warner was going to do with the NBA. Well, according to some reports, this one from Reuters and, reports that have been going around the sports world in general, we have learned that Warner Brothers and ESPN, the negotiating window for those two companies to negotiate with the NBA to extend the current media rights deals has expired. The NBA is now talking and will be talking in the future to other media rights partners. So there's going to be potentially Amazon involved here. You could see Netflix, although I doubt that Netflix is going to be in the game for that, especially when you consider they just paid billions of dollars to get Monday Night Raw. I highly expect, though, there to be some serious negotiations. And at this stage, it does not seem likely that Warner Brothers will retain the NBA on TNT. Now, is that still out of the realm of possibility at all? No. But the more important question from a wrestling standpoint is, how does this impact All Elite Wrestling? As I said before, one of the biggest dominoes to fall was the NBA media rights deal. If Warner Brothers was able to come to an agreement, then, a bit of AEW's leverage goes away, because one of the biggest attractions for a show like AEW is that no matter what, it is going to be a top 3 show. At least Dynamite, I should say, is going to be a top 3 show in prime time every single week that's going to deliver 52 weeks out of the year. And if you're Warner Brothers Discovery, that is big, because right now, one of the few things that does well in traditional cable is live streaming. And one of the few things that you're able to get a group of friends or a group of people to traditionally watch week in, week out is live wrestling. And if you look at the current situation with Warner Brothers right now not close to a deal with the National Basketball Association, then it now gives AEW a bit more leverage in this, because now Warner Brothers, if they're out of the NBA, then they need that live streaming commodity. They need an entity that they're able to put on their shows that they can kind of hitch their wagons to. And I think that could be All Elite Wrestling, and I think it should be AEW. They already have a great relationship with them. We know that they are negotiating, and we also know that at the end of the day, say what you want, people are going to scream until they're blue in the face about, hey, they can't draw more than 800,000, they can't draw more than 900,000. In this current landscape of cable, in this current landscape of media, in this current landscape of entertainment, getting 800,000 people to tune in weekly to a show and getting and scoring what AEW does in their key demos is enough to land a lucrative deal that will make AEW profitable. It is the truth. People are going to sit there and say that is incorrect, without looking at any of the finances, without looking at any of the projections, without looking at any of the potential for growth and the potential for revenue. And in addition to the revenue that AEW is already drawing with their pay-per-view numbers as well as their current media rights deal. People will ignore all of that and tell you that all that matters is that they're only getting 2,000 to 3,000 people for weekly TV, which is a problem. And it's a problem that AEW needs to work through because it shows that your product is not as hot, it's not as engaging as it once used to be. But that doesn't change the conversation about profitability or what they should or will get in their next media rights deal. People like to conflate that. And, you know, it was brought up again in that CM Punk interview. Punk said a lot of things that could be taken as true. I agreed with a lot of stuff that Punk said. The one thing that was not true, though, was that AEW is not a business. AEW is not only a business, but a successful one that Forbes recently, in their top combat sports issue, or in their when they reported the top grossing combat sports brands, they were listed at number 3 behind only WWE and the UFC at a valuation that, you know, outgrew what a lot of people thought. They were valued at about, was it $2.8 billion, something in that realm? That is big. For an upstart company that's not been around for 5 years, that is massive. And it also, you know, calls into question some of the recent reports, and I use that term very loosely here, these reports that Warner Brothers is unhappy in their current negotiations with AEW and that they don't necessarily want, or they're not necessarily high on AEW. There have been multiple outlets, places reporting this. Some very non-credible ones. A lot of them, most of them, all of them, non-credible in my view. I think there's this weird propensity in wrestling media to go with the narrative and stick with it, even if the facts don't bear that out. And in my view, if you're a podcaster like Eric Bischoff is, right, and you're doing it for entertainment, that is what it is. It's not real analysis, you know, but it is what it is. We all know that. Same thing with, you know, people who have their bits on their podcast, same thing. Like, that's fine. When you go out of your way, however, and you have a podcast, you have whatever, I'm not talking about Eric now, but when you go out of your way to claim things that either are not true or claim things that you may have heard that aren't necessarily vetted out, in my view, I think that it's not only deceiving the people that you're, you know, telling this information to, but you're also, in a way, you know, just feeding into the narrative that you want there to be. Right now, as far as we know, and as far as what the more, I think, credible sources have said, they're negotiating. They're negotiating. We know that Warner Brothers is high on AEW because it is, again, one of the top shows in prime time. As far as Dynamite goes, one of the top shows in prime time on Wednesday night. That is a big deal. If you look at their current media rights deal, they're going to get a massive increase because they have outperformed it by leaps and bounds. Now, are they going to get that 1 billion number? That's TBD, because we all knew the 1 billion number for however long this is. One, it depends on how long this is. I think the 1 billion number over 5 years would be $250 million a year, which is, according to Brandon Thurston, who's really broken all of this down, I think, in the most credible and actually mathematically accurate way. The $250 million number for the entire media rights deal is probably on the higher end. That being said, if they were to get $800 million, $750 million, somewhere in that ballpark, that's still a pretty astronomical number. And it's a big deal. And when you take into account what Tony Khan said on this week's media call, just read a quick excerpt of what he had to say when he was talking about specifically the streaming deal or the streaming rights. It says, quote, "I think it's something that we'll be looking at and evaluating in the upcoming media rights negotiations. I think there's a great opportunity for AEW, really our media team, and all of our fans to present this incredible library that has never really been made available. You know, it's amazing. We've done over 230 episodes of AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite. We've had hundreds of episodes of Dynamite, Rampage, and now Collision approaching a 1-year anniversary. We've done so many great pay-per-view events over the past 5 years. A large percentage of the best events on pay-per-view and wrestling have been from AEW. The whole library has never been in one place together. There's no place to really go and watch all these Dynamites and all these great events. So an archive library and a place to put streaming events, it's really interesting. It's a really interesting idea, and I think it's certainly something that has existed in wrestling, and wrestling fans are able to watch a lot of events on streaming, and AEW events should be up there. It's something I expect to happen in our next media rights deal. We're in an exclusive window right now talking to Warner Brothers Discovery, which is amazing, and it's been a great time with Warner Brothers Discovery. We're coming up on the 5th anniversary of our debut on AEW on Turner Sports. That is phenomenal to me, and it's really important, and I want to respect our media partner and how these negotiations are to us. And certainly we're going to have a great opportunity going into 2025 to present all of AEW TV and all of our major pay-per-view events like this Sunday, where all of these shows live in 2025 is to be determined, which is exciting for us. It has also been speculated by Andrew Zarians and other people in that realm that the expectation is that that library would live on Max, and that once these negotiations are over, like, we are going to see some sort of, hopefully, a simulcast deal where AEW is on both live TV as well as simulcast on Max. We've seen them do that with the NBA recently, and honestly, that would be helpful, or not helpful, but that would be great for AEW for two reasons. Number one, you get to kind of test your value on Max, and you get to help Max kind of take that next step as far as live streaming week-to-week content and build that infrastructure there. And number two, more importantly for AEW, you get to be on multiple platforms at once live. You're going to be on cable, and you're going to be able to reach, hopefully, an older audience that may not necessarily have Max, or an audience that doesn't have Max. And then you're going to be on Max, where you would expect HBO and Warner Brothers Discovery would be pushing them pretty hard in a similar way that WWE is getting pushed a lot on Peacock. The other thing that personally I'm going to take a lot of hope and happiness in is that we kind of stop talking about the ratings as far as this weird competition. CM Punk once said, like, wrestling fans sometimes have a weird parasocial relationship to wrestlers. I think the same is true with ratings sometimes. And again, this is like a very small portion of the overall audience. But I feel like there's this obsession with ratings and whether or not they draw X amount and that determines success. When, if you want to look at it from a business standpoint, the ratings are interesting and there is value to look at them. But if you're just in it for the tribalism or whatever, I mean, to me, that's not the point to even be tribal at. That's just like, what are we doing? Was the show good or not in your eyes, right? At least that's my view. Anyway, but if they do get simulcast, then the live TV number is really going to matter significantly less, because you're going to have that simulcast and people watching on Max, which I'll probably do. In that case, like, by that time, Raw would be on Netflix. I'd be able to watch AEW content on Max. SmackDown would be on USA, and I have to figure something out for that. But I'd probably cut cable, like completely. I would cut YouTube TV definitely. But there's a lot of stuff that's happening. It's obviously still not final. Like there's still a possibility that AEW could end up, on another network. The issue that they run into here, if the negotiations for whatever reason do fall through with Warner Brothers Discovery, is that what other networks are really left for AEW to be on? Because you're not going to be on the NBC Universal property because of their deal with WWE. Netflix is out of the deal. There's potential that Amazon would want to, but because they've been trying to get into live streaming and they were in the WWE Raw negotiations for a minute. But how much of that is actually them wanting to, and for AEW, would you want to be exclusively on a streamer and like given where you would be in your next media rights deal? Because we all know that live streaming and those numbers aren't as high as cable. It's just the truth. So is that where you want to be in a few years? And are you going to be in a strong enough position to leverage whatever numbers you would have on Amazon? Is your show going to be reachable to a lot of people? That's the issue. That's the issue you run into with streaming. Outside of that, if you go to traditional cable, what's left? Can't be on NBC Universal. Not going to be likely on ESPN because of the deal with the UFC. FS1, FX. I mean, FX would be an interesting one, but I think it could work better. FS1, I'm not sure. It's definitely not in as many homes as TNT or TBS is. That's another issue. Like they are on a mainstay in cable television in TBS and TNT, and no matter where else they go, they would be on less channels, or in less homes, excuse me. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on. Overall, though, I think that the rumors and speculation of AEW's demise in this TV deal are kind of exaggerated. At this point, if Warner Brothers doesn't end up coming to terms with the NBA, I think they would go, for lack of a better term, all in on AEW as far as trying to reach a deal with them, because they want to be able to secure that live week-to-week television. I think that's very important for them. We know it's important to AEW, but I guess we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think about all of this in the comments section below. Also, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Until next time, keep it real.